The string of her dress snapped. Right there in front of me, while she leaned in toward him, whispering something that made his mouth curve into that smug little half-smile, I watched the thin strap of red silk fall down her shoulder. She didn't notice. He did. And instead of telling her, he reached up slowly, delicately, and fixed it for her. Like it was something sacred. Like she was his. She laughed. Not just any laugh. The soft, breathy one she used to save for our kitchen after wine nights, barefoot, before we stopped kissing at red lights. I wasn't supposed to be watching. I wasn't even supposed to be there. But I came anyway. I wasn't invited. Not officially. The gala was on her firm's calendar, but my name wasn't on the guest list. She told me it was just partners and senior execs this year. That I'd feel out of place. That I'd get bored like last time. She said all that while curling her lashes. She said it while wearing earrings I didn't recognize. I played dumb. Told her to have a great night. Wished her luck. Then I changed my shirt in the garage and drove downtown. No one noticed me walk in. That was the thing about tuxedos. You just look like you belong if you keep your head down and move like you're supposed to be holding a glass of something expensive. The ballroom was a mess of laughter and lighting and people who didn't care who I was. Until I saw her. And suddenly, everything was too loud. She didn't just look good. She looked intentional. Like she designed herself for that room, for that man, for that moment. And whatever version of her I used to know, whatever part belonged to me, had been scrubbed away. I saw her touch his knee when she laughed. I saw her slide her phone across the table, screen down, after showing him something. I saw him nod like they'd just made a deal. Not a business one. That's when I realized something terrifying. She didn't look like she was cheating. She looked like she'd already moved on. Without telling me. Without needing to. And for a second, a real, disgusting second, I actually told myself it was okay. That maybe I deserved this. That maybe I hadn't been enough for a long time, and this was just what happened when people stopped needing each other. But then she looked up. Saw me. Not with shock. Not with guilt. Just mild inconvenience. And when she stood, when she walked toward me, when she opened her mouth to say whatever rehearsed thing she thought might make this less real, I took a step back. She reached out. I didn't take her hand. I'm not here for this, I told her. Howard, she began. But I shook my head. Quietly. Calmly. With something burning behind my eyes I hadn't felt in years. Not this time, I said. And then louder, because the room had suddenly gone silent. Not again. She stood there frozen. One arm half raised, her mouth parted like she was about to say something kind, or diplomatic, or just fake. She'd never been at a loss for words before, but that night, under the golden glow of chandelier light and between the clinking of champagne glasses, she was. For once, I didn't flinch. I walked past her without giving her a chance to explain. Not because I didn't want to hear it. God knows I'd played every possible version of her excuses in my head for weeks. I just didn't want to give her the power of performance. That's all it would have been. A performance, delivered with perfect tone and calculated sorrow, designed to keep me orbiting her world while she built a second life on the side. I headed toward the valet corridor. My hands were shaking, not from anger, but from the slow collapse of a decade's worth of denial. I should have left right then, but I didn't. Because I made the mistake of turning around. She wasn't alone anymore. He had followed her. The same man from earlier, now standing beside her like he had the right. He placed his hand gently on the small of her back, my wife, and whispered something that made her eyes dart toward me. And then, get this, she smiled. Not a warm smile. A tight, subtle, smug one. The kind you wear when you think you've won. That was the moment everything inside me rearranged. I didn't just feel betrayed. I felt disposable. Like she had already rewritten our story and cast me as the placeholder husband. The safe bet. The quiet guy who would make a scene while she pursued a more exciting subplot behind my back. Well, she was half right. I didn't scream. I didn't shove him. I didn't beg. I just took my phone out and played the audio. I had no idea if it would work. I had only started recording her calls out of a sense of desperation and pathetic self-preservation. But a week ago, she'd gone out for client drinks and accidentally left her iPad unlocked in the bedroom. The call came through there too. I recorded it on my phone in total silence. And now, in front of her boss, and half a dozen polished colleagues, the ballroom echoed faintly with her voice. I know he's boring, but I'm not ready for the divorce yet. I need a few more months. He just got a bonus. When it clears, I'll take care of it. Then it's just you and me. The room didn't go silent, but it shifted. Conversations paused. Heads turned. Marlene's face dropped in a way I will never forget, not out of guilt, but from pure, exposed panic. Her lover, or whatever he was, took a step away from her like she had a contagious disease. A woman in a dark blue gown covered her mouth. Someone dropped their glass. I didn't wait to see what came next. I slipped out the side entrance while the confusion was still settling in. I didn't want applause. I didn't want pity. I just wanted the truth to land somewhere outside my head for once. Outside, the air hit different. Cold, but sobering. For the first time in years, I wasn't pretending. But here's the thing I didn't expect. She followed me. Not right away, not with apologies. 20 minutes later, barefoot, makeup running, clutching her heels, she came out the side door like someone chasing a cab they were sure would wait. She saw me standing near the edge of the valet circle, clutching the jacket I no longer deserved to wear. "Howard," she said, voice breaking like it meant something. "Please, just talk to me. You misunderstood, eh?" "No," I cut in, sharper than I ever thought I was capable of. "You misunderstood. You thought I'd just absorb it." Again, she stepped closer. It was complicated. I didn't plan for any of this to happen. And yet it did. Repeatedly. "Please, just come home. We can talk. I made a mistake." I stared at her, not knowing if I was going to cry or throw up or collapse. "You made a choice," I said finally. "And now I'm making mine." She didn't follow me to the car. I expected one last rush, her grabbing my arm, crying, screaming, saying anything to drag me back into her web. But she just stood there in the valet circle like a broken statue, mascara dripping down like some forgotten opera character after curtain call. I drove home in silence. No radio. No calls. Just the hum of tires on cold asphalt and the slow unraveling of a dozen memories that now meant nothing. Her laugh in the kitchen. Her hand on my chest when I couldn't sleep. The way she used to squeeze my knee under dinner tables just to say, "I'm here." All of it felt stolen. Like I'd been borrowing someone else's life without knowing it. When I got home, I sat in the driveway for 20 minutes staring at the porch light. It was on. She'd left it that way, probably out of habit. Or guilt. Or both. The house looked the same, like nothing inside had shifted, but I knew better. That light wasn't welcoming. It was mocking. I didn't go inside. Not right away. Instead, I grabbed a small duffel bag from the garage, packed a few clothes, a toothbrush, my laptop, and one photo from our hallway wall. Not a wedding photo. Those felt like propaganda now. It was an old Polaroid from our second year together. We were camping. No makeup, no fake smiles. Just her resting her head on my shoulder while I burned marshmallows. I kept it not because I missed her, but because I missed him, the man I was back then. Before all this, I drove to a motel 20 minutes away. The kind of place where the clerk doesn't ask questions. I checked in under a fake name, Derek Hayes, because even hearing my own name felt too raw. That night, I didn't sleep. I scrolled through our shared cloud account, one she forgot to lock when she got her new phone. The photos told stories she never did. Beach selfies with people I didn't know. Dinner plates for two that didn't match any restaurant I'd ever been to. And then, deep in one of the hidden albums, something I hadn't expected. Videos. They weren't graphic. Not explicit. But they were worse. Because they were full of intimacy. Her laughing on a hotel bed, tossing a room key at the camera. Her singing to a song I didn't know while cooking in someone else's kitchen. Her voice, softer than I remembered, saying, "I love this. I love you." My throat tightened. The timestamp said it was 7 months ago. 7. That wasn't a mistake. That was a lifestyle. She'd told me the affair was brief. That it happened after a fight. That it didn't mean anything. But I could see now how carefully she'd crafted her second world. Her texts had code names. Her payments were split across 2 burner cards. And her calendar? It had color-coded networking nights that aligned perfectly with the man I'd seen her with at the gala. Same name. Same damn smile. I didn't cry. I just stopped breathing right. I felt like I'd been living in a parallel universe. One where I thought I was the main character, but it turned out I was just the background, something that filled space until her real story began. The next morning, she sent a text. "Howard, please come home. We need to talk. I'm so sorry." Then a second one. "He means nothing. You're the one I want." And finally, "Please don't tell anyone." That last one made my skin crawl. Don't tell anyone. That wasn't about love. That was about reputation. She didn't want me back. She wanted the cover back. So I didn't reply. Not right away. Instead, I emailed a zip file to myself, photos, screenshots, recordings, and labeled it just in case she makes me the villain. Because I knew what was coming. When she realized I wasn't going to protect her anymore, she'd do what all professionals trained in image control do. She'd flip the narrative. And I had to be ready. But even then, I didn't expect what she'd do next. It started with a phone call from HR. "Howard, I'm afraid there's been a complaint filed against you." At first, I thought it was a mistake. I hadn't been in the office for 3 days. I'd filed for emergency leave the morning after the gala. I told them I needed time to deal with personal matters, and they were understanding. I'd never caused trouble, never raised my voice, never even showed up late. But here I was on a Friday morning, sitting in the parking lot of a motel that smelled like mildew, listening to my company politely explain that I'd been accused of inappropriate digital surveillance and emotional coercion. I didn't need a detective to figure out where it came from. Marlene. She'd gone quiet after those last texts. I thought maybe she'd accepted that it was over. I even let myself believe, for a minute, that she felt ashamed. That somewhere in her frozen heart, she was finally understanding what she'd done to me. But no, she wasn't grieving the loss. She was preparing for war. She'd always been strategic, coldly so. The kind of woman who never posted online without checking angles, lighting, or audience reach. She curated her life like a brand. And now that the truth had slipped out, she wasn't trying to repair it, she was trying to control the fallout. I was the fallout. She told HR that I had been accessing her devices without consent, that I had threatened her with private materials, that I had a history of paranoia. They asked if I wanted to give a statement. I laughed. Of course I did. I gave them everything, my screenshots, the audio file, the timestamps, the receipt, even the text messages where she said, "Please don't tell anyone." The woman reviewing the case went silent for a long time. And then she whispered, "Jesus Christ." Yeah, I hadn't even told them the worst of it yet. I didn't tell them about the voice note I found in her deleted files. The one where she told her friend. Honestly, I think Howard's too weak to do anything. That's what makes it so easy. I kept that one for myself. That night, I got an email from her. Not a message. Not a call. An email. Polite, clean, clinical. She said she was sorry for how things ended, and that she'd like to avoid making this messy for both our sakes. She offered to sign divorce papers quietly if I could agree not to disclose anything sensitive to her workplace or family. It wasn't love. It wasn't grief. It was damage control. I stared at that email for 15 minutes. Then I closed my laptop, opened the mini fridge, pulled out a warm beer, and drank half of it in one gulp. It was disgusting, but it did the job. I needed something to cut through the numbness. Later that evening, I made a decision. If she wanted quiet, I'd give her the opposite. No, not revenge. Not humiliation. That wasn't me. But I wasn't going to keep her secrets anymore. Not for her comfort. I scheduled a meeting with her firm's ethics officer. I told them everything, where she'd been, who she'd met, how she'd used company events for private affairs, and how she'd lied to their senior partners about why I hadn't attended the first gala. I showed them proof. They listened carefully. Took notes. I don't know what they did with it. I didn't care. What mattered was this. For once, I'd stopped hiding. Stopped apologizing for being hurt. Stopped trying to protect the very person who had hollowed me out. But that wasn't the end of it. Not by a long shot. Because just when I thought she'd backed off, just when I thought she'd finally gone quiet, I got the letter. It wasn't from her. It was from a lawyer. And what was inside turned everything on its head. I opened the envelope with the same numb caution you'd use to check for a ticking sound behind a locked door. It was heavier than a typical legal notice, thicker paper, professionally bound. The name of the firm on the letterhead was familiar. It was the one that had handled our mortgage refinancing 2 years ago. A family-focused outfit. So when I saw the words allegation, domestic intimidation, and emotional manipulation, I actually had to read the paragraph 3 times before my brain accepted what I was seeing. She wasn't just trying to frame me in private now. She was taking it legal. The letter was filled with polished phrases and veiled threats. She'd accused me of controlling behavior, of tracking her movements, of eroding her mental health through calculated guilt. They had a copy of my cloud archive, which she now claimed I accessed, without permission. The document called it a pattern of psychological harm. I sat on the edge of the motel bed, shaking. Not out of rage. Out of something far worse. Disbelief. She was rewriting the entire narrative. She turned herself into the victim and made me the villain in a story I didn't even recognize. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. I went to the bathroom, stared at my reflection, and tried to see the man they were describing. The man who allegedly coerced and manipulated a woman for months. All I saw was someone too weak to even yell when he was being lied to in his own bed. But then something happened that stopped this spiral cold. The motel phone rang. Nobody had that number. I picked up, expecting a prank or worse. But it was a voice I didn't recognize. A woman. Calm. Direct. She said, "My name is Stephanie. I used to work with Marlene. I was at the gala. I saw everything." My first thought was, scam. Trap. Setup. But she continued, "I saw you walk in. I saw her face. I saw the guy. I saw what you did, and more importantly, I saw what she did after you left. You need to hear this." I agreed to meet her. We picked a public place, an empty park pavilion, early morning, still damp from sprinklers. She came with a flash drive and coffee. She looked nervous but determined. Said she'd been friends with Marlene until she realized what kind of person she really was. That night at the gala was her breaking point. She handed me the flash drive. "There's footage," she said. "Not from security, don't worry. From a colleague. She was vlogging the event for her lifestyle channel. She left her camera running on the table. It caught everything. I watched the clip in my car. Marlene and the man, touching, whispering, passing a card. Her smile. The hotel key. Him saying he's not coming, right? And her answering, he never shows. I made sure. Then, after I left, the camera caught her sitting back down at the table with a wine glass and saying loudly to her coworkers, "He's always so jealous. I told him to stay home tonight. I just couldn't deal with his clinginess." She said it like she was annoyed. Like I was some obsessive footnote she couldn't shake. I didn't realize I'd clenched my fists until my nails broke skin. Stephanie had also printed texts. Screenshots from months prior. Marlene bragging about keeping me passive, calling me emotionally dumb but financially convenient, saying things like, "As long as he feels like he's the problem, I'm safe." Safe. She used me like a shelter while she ran around outside the storm. But now I had proof. Not of a crime. Not of some grand legal scandal. But of truth. And in a world where perception matters more than facts, that kind of truth was power. Stephanie didn't want anything in return. She just said, "I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner." She's good at making people feel small. I nodded. Yeah, she's an expert. That night, I drafted a reply to her lawyer. Respectful. Detailed. Firm. I included the timeline of events, the screenshots, the footage. I said I'd countersue for defamation if her campaign continued. I copied 3 contacts I had at her firm, including someone on the ethics board. No threats. Just facts. Then I went back to the house. I didn't go in. But I left something in the mailbox, a flash drive with a sticky note that said, "If you're going to burn it all down, at least be honest about who lit the match." I didn't expect the truth to break her. I expected anger. Maybe more lies. Another letter, another threat. But not what came next. 3 days after I dropped the flash drive in the mailbox, I returned to my motel late one night, exhausted from meeting with an attorney who specialized in reputational defense. My head hurt, my phone was at 2%, and I hadn't eaten anything except gas station trail mix since morning. All I wanted was sleep. Instead, I pulled into the parking lot and saw smoke. At first, I thought it was from the road. Someone burning leaves. An overworked grill. But as I got closer, I saw it. A black heap of melted plastic and ash, right where my rental car used to be. Gone. Just gone. The motel manager came running out barefoot, still chewing on something. "Man, I called it in, I swear," he said. "It went up fast. Like someone poured something on it first." The fire chief later confirmed. Arson. An accelerant was used. The car was a write-off. And when the officer asked if I had any enemies, I actually laughed. That laugh turned to silence when I saw what was spray-painted on the wall just behind the burned car. "Tell the whole truth." In red. Perfect handwriting. Like someone had practiced it. Marlene's handwriting used to look like that. Neat. Controlled. Always perfectly slanted, like a font. I didn't say her name. Not yet. But I filed a report, showed the threatening letters, and gave them the context. They took notes. Said they'd look into it. But I could see it in their eyes. They'd heard worse, seen weirder. A car fire was just Tuesday night. Still, it changed something in me. Because now, I was afraid. Not of her, not entirely, but of what she was willing to do when the mask slipped. This wasn't about love anymore. Not even revenge. It was about control. She had built her entire identity around manipulation, optics, and being one step ahead. And I had shattered that with one audio file and a flash drive. Now, she was trying to burn the evidence. Literally. I switched motels the next day, paid in cash, got a new number, went quiet online. It was like trying to erase myself in real time, deleting breadcrumbs before she could follow. I even stayed out of sight from my own family. Not because I didn't trust them, but because I didn't want them pulled into whatever this had become. But that didn't stop her. She showed up at my sister's house. Middle of the day. Full smile. Gift bag in hand. Like it was some social visit. Said she was just checking in, wanted to make sure I was okay. Claimed she hadn't heard from me and was worried. My sister didn't buy it. She told her to leave. Marlene asked to use the restroom. My sister told her no. Then Marlene said, "Tell him I forgive him. And that I'm still willing to talk before things get ugly." That was it. The line that changed everything. My sister called me immediately, shaking. She looked calm, she said. Too calm. Like she rehearsed the whole thing. I didn't reply. I just stared at the phone for a long time, wondering when I had started living in a psychological thriller. Later that night, I sat alone in the dark with a notebook, listing out everything I had. Messages, recordings, witnesses, receipts. I cross-referenced timelines, mapped dates, and highlighted every moment that contradicted her version of events. I knew she'd twist this in court. She'd already tried with HR. I had to be airtight. But something was missing. Intent. I didn't just want to prove she cheated or lied or manipulated. I wanted to prove this wasn't a bad marriage. It was a weaponized one. A long, slow conditioning of a man until he stopped reacting. Until he stopped asking questions. Until he stopped existing for himself. So I made one final move. I contacted someone she never expected. Her mother. I know. It sounds ridiculous. But I remembered something from years ago. A Thanksgiving dinner where her mother got drunk and told me she learned how to win arguments from her father. But she learned how to rewrite them from me. Back then, I laughed. Now, I called. And to my surprise, she answered. Even more surprising? She invited me over. And when I walked into her home, unsure if I was about to be ambushed or lectured or thrown out, she simply said, "I know why you're here, and I have something you'll want to hear." The moment I stepped into her mother's home, I could tell something was off. It wasn't the silence. Marlene's mother, Frances, was always more observant than talkative. It was the arrangement of things. The photos. They were all of Marlene, but not a single one showed her with me. Not even from our wedding. There had been one, taken in a vineyard, her head resting on my shoulder while we held flutes of cheap champagne. But it was gone. Replaced by one of her alone, standing at the head of a conference table like she was delivering a TED Talk. Frances gestured to the kitchen without speaking. I followed. The kettle was already hissing, like this conversation had been boiling long before I arrived. She poured 2 cups, slid one toward me, and finally sat. "I'm not going to defend her," she said quietly. "But you need to understand, this didn't start with you. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe denial. Maybe gaslighting. But not this." She was 8, Frances continued, when she learned how to lie without blinking. Her father used to disappear for days, and when I'd cry, she'd tell me he's probably with another family. You should start packing just in case. Not with anger. With calm. Like she was already planning my next move for me. I didn't say anything. I didn't trust my voice. She saw everything as a transaction, she went on. Even love. Especially love. That's why you scared her. Me. I choked out. You gave her safety. Stability. That bored her after a while. But the moment she sensed you slipping away, she panicked. Because you were still useful, socially, financially, even emotionally, in her own twisted way. But instead of apologizing, she did what she always does when control starts slipping. She rewrites the rules and blames the other player. Frances opened a drawer beside the stove. Pulled out a thick envelope. "I never thought I'd give this to you," she said. "But now I don't want to be part of the silence anymore." Inside were old letters. Journal pages. Notes between Marlene and a man I didn't recognize, years old, predating our marriage. It wasn't just cheating. It was a system. Relationships layered on top of each other like stepping stones. She never left one man without already standing in the pocket of another. And then I found it. A printed email chain between Marlene and a former therapist she'd stopped seeing after 3 sessions. The last email, from the therapist, read, "You may want to consider what it means when manipulation becomes your default language. You're not seeking partnership. You're seeking ownership." Frances folded her hands, like a judge waiting for a verdict. I loved her. I still do. But she scares me now, she said. Not because she's evil, but because she's willing to destroy anyone who makes her feel vulnerable. I asked the question I'd been holding for years. Why didn't you say anything? She looked down at her tea. Because she threatened to ruin me. Said she'd claim I was unstable. That she'd get the rest of the family to cut me out. I didn't think anyone would believe me. I understood that feeling all too well. When I left France's house, I didn't feel better. I felt clarified. Like someone had wiped the fog from a dirty mirror and finally forced me to look at what had really been in front of me all this time. And that's when I made my final decision. Not out of spite. Not out of anger. Out of survival. I was done letting her write the story. I wasn't going to fight her in court. I wasn't going to retaliate. I was going to vanish. In the way I did it, well, it started with one carefully composed email. Sent at 3:04 a.m. To Marlene. To her lawyer. To her firm. The subject line was just one word. Exit. The email I sent was brief. No threats. No bitterness. No dramatic language. Just facts. A list of dates, a timeline of events, a declaration that I would not be contesting anything further in court. I relinquished any claim to the house, to the shared assets. I told them I'd be signing the divorce documents electronically and that I didn't require a conversation, only confirmation that it was done. And I ended it with a line that took me months to earn the strength to write. I wish you peace, but I no longer offer you my presence. I hit send. Then I turned off the phone. I bought a second-hand truck, paid cash, deleted every cloud account, canceled my credit cards, transferred my remaining savings into a new account under my middle name. I didn't run. I withdrew like a patient who's finally walking out of a hospital after years of unspoken illness. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not even my sister. I just left a note that said, "This isn't goodbye. It's me, finally living." I drove west for 3 days. Slept in rest stops, ate at diners with cracked booths and good coffee. Somewhere near the edge of Colorado, I found a small town that didn't have chain stores or parking meters. Just silence. Space. Clean air. A used bookstore run by an old man with trembling hands. A coffee shop where the barista said good morning like she meant it. That's where I stopped. I rented a cabin with no internet, no TV, just a wood-burning stove, a view of the lake, and shelves full of forgotten paperbacks. The first night I stayed there, I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I didn't feel victorious. I just slept. For 9 uninterrupted hours. The kind of sleep I hadn't had since before I started asking myself why her hugs felt like strategy. The following weeks were quiet. I woke up with the sun. I read 3 novels in 1 week. I taught myself how to cook simple things without watching a YouTube tutorial. I kept a journal, not to record trauma, but to prove to myself that every day was real, that I wasn't dreaming, that I had actually escaped. And then one morning, at the coffee shop, a woman named April asked if she could share my table. Her hands were full, 2 mugs and a muffin balanced precariously on top. She smiled like someone who had no idea what I'd been through. And that was the point. She didn't know me as the man who'd been betrayed, or erased, or humiliated. She just knew me as the man reading a paperback about wolves, sipping tea, wearing a flannel shirt that didn't quite fit. We talked for an hour. Then 2. Nothing deep. Nothing forced. Just the kind of conversation that reminds you you're human again. And later that week, she came back. Not because she needed anything, but because she wanted to. One afternoon in late fall, weeks after I'd let go of the wreckage, I checked the backup email I kept for emergencies. There it was. From Marlene. Subject line, please. Just talk to me. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. That version of my life, the one filled with begging, silence, calculation, and walking on emotional glass, it didn't fit anymore. It wasn't rejection. It wasn't cruelty. It was closure. The cabin lease ends in spring. I'll probably move again. Or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll keep planting small roots in quiet places. Maybe I'll finally start sketching again, something I haven't done since college. Maybe I'll start something new, with no one watching, and no one waiting to take it from me. I used to think my life was over. Now I realize it was just finally beginning.